You said that now you have a lot more control over the creative direction. Why? What changed?
When I was starting my solo project, the way it really works in the SoundCloud world is typically like you just find a producer who's already made everything because it costs thousands of dollars to invest in, like the samples and
Mm-hmm.
the setup for the production. So
Okay.
you have a lot less freedom to like change, what's already been done with the
Oh,
production
okay. I
and the
see.
beats. So that's what the issues with a lot of like the stuff you hear on SoundCloud is like it's mostly just vocals over a beat. And I grew up in rock bands where I would help write all of the different parts, including drums and bass. So it's like this is not enough for me. Like I
Yeah.
I loved it because it was just a side project when I started it, but then it became my full time, me like so I wanted to pour more of myself into it. I felt like I didn't have enough of my own voice. Although like I still like love everything I've made, and I only was very selective about the beats that I chose and the
For
producers I
sure.
worked with. But now I'm fortunate enough that I go into a studio with guitarists and like a full band basically, and we're just sitting there writing out all the parts like I used to do. But it's like we're able to actually incorporate all of this like really high production, and just make it feel like me.
That's incredible. I love it. And that's definitely interesting too, because that freedom now, I guess that does explain why the sound is um so like less, I don't know how to explain it, because it feels like they're within the last, the most recent releases, there's
Mhm,
been a lot more experimentation, I guess is the way that I can put it. It
mhm,
was, I'm going to really just do how I want to do, and create these songs that have their own personality. Each of the songs has their own personality, and they're telling things in such a different way. So what was it that clicked, that made it so you could do this as your full time gig?
just like a lot of hard work, I guess, and just it
Heck
was
yeah.
kind of like I had been prepping for it for so long because this was like my absolute dream, and I just knew like if I didn't do it now, it would never happen. So I worked extremely hard, just like releasing songs and videos, and like last year, I don't even know how many songs I released, but I worked very hard last year, and I even now I definitely have a lot of stuff that I'm again like sitting on waiting to drop. So I worked ahead a ton for this year, so that I'm prepared and I know what's coming. So I saved up a ton, and it basically like Spotify as well like changed my life. Like the amount of streams that I get from Spotify really was able to like make that leap and be able to do this full time. So I also like moved into a house with friends, and like there were some sacrifices there with like I had my own apartment, and then I moved into a house where I'm like, sharing things.
Hmm.
But it's all worth it to be able to do this full time. And also it's an amazing house. So like I can't complain about
Yeah.
that.
That's so freaking cool. I mean, first off, with all of that, congrats. There's, it's a very small group of people who um put in enough work, and of the people who put in enough work, it's also another small percentage who actually make it possible to be this is their gig. So congratulations on that. That is so freaking cool. And I like that hard work. That's a whole other level, because like, for me, I have a full-time job, and I do this podcast as an opportunity to just try and get more opportunities for bands to be noticed, right? But like, it's tough to balance life. And so when
Mhm.
you were going through all that hard work, and you were planning to transition to being full-time musician, obviously you mentioned some of the sacrifices, but how did you maintain it? Like, what were you doing to keep yourself healthy mentally and emotionally to get to this point?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that's why my music is so heavy sometimes because it is like that's what got me through it is like being able to release my emotions through music because it's like therapy for me. When I finish writing a song, I feel better afterward. But there was so many times where I would work a super long shift, I would get off work, and then like that's what syncing was. Like Sinking was truly just about how like I hated my job. I felt like
Mhm.
I was wasting time. Like my dreams were passing me by. And I, again, like I had worked so hard. I knew that I wanted to do this full time. There would become times where I felt like I would never see that, like it would never happen. I would get discouraged, but it was this whole time it was still growing and growing. And that's, towards the end of when I decided to finally make the jump because, having that stable 9 to 5, there's a lot that, there's a lot of perks that come with that,
Yeah,
the
for sure.
stability. Right. But yeah, I was at my lowest point when I decided to make that decision because I was balancing all of these things in my life that I couldn't balance anymore. Like I couldn't properly keep up with my friendships. I couldn't take care of myself properly the way I wanted to. I sure as hell was not going to stop back down on my music.
Yeah.
And I barely had time for like movies or video games or anything because I would get off my shift and I would work on music for hours and then I would go to bed and then I would do it all over again
Mhm.
because I knew like I would not let anything stop me from my dream and from, having everything ready for music that I needed to have ready because it's so time consuming.
Yeah. And when did that transition happen for you to doing full time? Because obviously, Sinking was released in 2021. I'd imagine that it was 2020 that you were able to make the transition.
No, it was literally January 2022. I
Oh,
just
just
started
barely.
music. Yes, just
That
barely. I've been
is
doing it for like
so.
2 months now.
That is incredible. Congratulations.
Thank
Oh
you.
man, I get so excited hearing stuff like that because I just want like I don't know. I just want that for the people who've done so much and sacrificed for so long. Because typically, it's a long time coming. You've been making music for a long time. Obviously, prior to Sorry X, I'm sure you said when you decided to do your solo stuff, that implies that you were doing a full band thing before. You were doing other projects before.
Yes.
So you had to make sacrifices there to say, all right, I want to just run with this on my own. And that's a huge leap of faith off of who knows how big the cliff is, right? Like there's
Right.
so much uncertainty in the world of being a musician. And so I just love to hear that. That's so freaking cool. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really after I went on my first tour, is like basically right when I was like, all right, I'm doing this. This is like reassured that this is what I want to do. Like I want to just travel and perform for people, like is absolutely my favorite part. Like I love writing music, of course, but performing and like seeing people smile is just like it literally is like the best feeling. So after that tour I went on in November, I was just like, all right, wrap it up, gotta do this full time. Like I don't care what I have to sacrifice. But yes,
That's
I've been doing
awesome.
music again, like in tons of different bands. I grew up like I started playing bass guitar and bands, and it was just like I knew in my heart that that's what I was meant to do, and I wouldn't stop for anyone. Like, I love to just like because there's so many people who feel discouraged. It's hard not to, but it's if you truly want it, you just have to keep going because people will tell you no. Like you will be told you're not good enough, and if you just take that as feedback and grow, like it's you're unstoppable.
Yeah. And if you didn't hit that low point, would you have made the leap, do you think?
you know, I'm not sure. It's like it's the scariest thing to make that.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a huge risk when you have all of the safety and all of these things you've worked for, with like your job elsewhere and everything. I saw a sign that said like, "There's never going to be a good time to follow your dream," basically.
Yeah.
And it was like I was waiting and I was waiting for that perfect clear lining to just be like, "Oh, this is exactly the moment." Or like a song blows up overnight, you get 5,000, 100, whatever, like
5,000
streams.
hundreds, yes.
Yeah. You get like 50 million, 5,000, 100. No,
Yeah.
but yeah, like you blow up overnight, you get 50 million
No,
streams.
yeah.
Like, that's so like incredibly rare. And there's so many different ways to achieve your dream. And that's the thing is like we all compare ourselves. We all see these stories and we think, oh, I haven't done exactly that. So like that's not going to happen for me. But everyone has such a different journey to be successful and to get where they are.
Absolutely.
And that's why I don't compare my journey at all. Like I wouldn't change a single thing about it. I'm super grateful. But I think I needed that. I was trying to keep up with way too much and it was just time, just felt
Yeah.
it.
I mean, it's one of those interesting things, right? Like our human mind thinks we can do, like our mind says, yeah, you can keep doing this. until eventually your mind becomes your biggest enemy, right? Like it can become your biggest asset at those times where you're just like really excited and your heart and your mind are in the same place where it's like, I'm so excited to do this. I know I can. So you're working, like you said, 9 to 5, and then an additional 5 hours on music, and then barely any sleep. And you're just, you don't have friends anymore, which weighs on you mentally and emotionally. And you're trying to do all these things. And then eventually it hits this point where your mind just starts hating you, right? Like you start hating yourself, and that's where that low point comes from, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that moment is a fork in the road. And I feel like it's really sad, but a lot of people choose to go with the more comfortable choice, which is, all right, well, the music is uncertain. I know I've got talent for it, but I know that I can be successful elsewhere. And so they kind of put it to the back burner. But you took the other fork, which was, I have no idea how I'm going to do this all like full time. Like, I don't know how it's going to do, but I know that I have the work ethic and the desire and the drive to get it done. So let's make it happen. And that's a terrifying choice.
100%. No, exactly. My parents agree with that terrifying choice. They're like, why are you doing this? But they're very supportive, so it's okay. But yeah, exactly. Like I knew that I have, they say I like to hustle. Like I make it work,
Yeah.
So, and I know that would follow me regardless. I definitely, I had like 80,000 monthly listeners by the time I decided to do this full time. So I did have, a lot established already. It wasn't like starting from nowhere, but it's still uncertain, definitely, of where it's going and how to make it truly, financially successful. And
yeah.
I just knew that I would always regret it if I didn't do it now, because there's never going to be a better time. Like you're only getting older, and and again, this is not to discourage anyone if you are older and wanting to make that leap again. Like I think making that decision for yourself and knowing that you did that for yourself, regardless of how it turns out, you'll never regret that decision.
Mm-hmm.
And I would sit there and I would think, okay, I'm putting in, like 40 hours into music, 40 hours into a job, and my my energy is depleted when I'm working on music. I'm not able to do everything I want to, even though I definitely worked really hard to try to keep up with it. It was like, I should be making more content. I should be making more videos. I should be like interacting with fans more, or like working on planning more shows. And there's only so much you can do when you have all of this other stuff going on. And I knew like, I just really needed to go 100% like Hail Mary, basically.
Yep.
And just see what would happen in the time that I do just give it my all and dedicate all of my time that I was dedicating to all the other things. And so far it's been like I've been actually seeing it. Like I got added to my first Spotify playlist, and my monthly listeners are higher than ever. And it's like, okay, so
that's so
there's
freaking
definitely
dope.
Exactly. So it's really awesome.